Hello, sweet souls, and welcome to the We Are the Medicine podcast. I am your host, Dania Anastasia. I am a spiritual being having a human experience as a planter of seeds, alternative medicine practitioner, and trail guide on the path of life. We Are the Medicine is an exploration of the human experience through our stories. Our stories heal. Our stories are our medicine. Our experiences are our medicine. This is how we learn, grow, inspire, expand, and connect. My hope is that you will listen for inspiration and deeper understanding of how your individual life plays a role in that of the collective. I also hope to engage you, the listener, in conversations around your own dinner tables, in cafes and boardrooms, so that we may all begin to hold space for one another. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the We Are the Medicine podcast. Today, I am humbled by the opportunity to speak to Karla Cain, who has been a longtime inspiration as well as what I consider to be a mentor for me in my life and in my Ayurvedic practice. Her passion, dedication, and determination to share the wisdom of Ayurveda and yoga makes her a true leader in the field of the healing arts. Karla is a certified Ayurvedic practitioner, yoga instructor, and founder of Sattvic Sage Ayurveda and Yoga in Phoenix, Arizona. As a Chicago native, she maintains a thriving practice of Ayurveda consultations, education, body therapeutics, seasonal cleanse programs, public and private yoga classes, and holistic business advisory, as well as yoga teacher certification training programs in both cities. She strives to be an advocate and a voice for the authentic practice and education of Ayurveda in the United States, supporting the establishment of education standards, supporting the credentialing and licensure to bring about fresh perspectives on Ayurveda as a viable form of clinical medical care for all people. I'm so very grateful for you for taking the time to talk to me today and share with my listeners your experience in this event we call life. Welcome, Karla.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. What a beautiful welcome. Thank you.
Yes. And as mentioned a little bit ago, we're going to start with something that's a little off the cuff, just a silly icebreaker.
Okay.
What is the most ridiculous fact that you know?
That I know
about
most
anything.
ridiculous fact that I know. Oh gosh, I'll have to think about that for just a second. I know lots of facts, and I don't know if this one would be ridiculous or just unusual.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that the vibration of pure quartz crystal is 786,000 pulses per millisecond.
Wow.
So that is the highest vibrational substance on planet Earth, is pure quartz crystal.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know if it's fun or ridiculous. Kind of ridiculous.
It's kind of ridiculous because I can't really fathom that amount of vibration.
Yeah.
But wow, man, I guess that's what I'll envision now when I do my grounding practices.
Yes. So for those of your listeners out there who do use crystals in their life, that's the fact.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. And it, serves, it's pretty right on as far as, how they can grow out of pretty much nothing, right?
Yes.
In the center of the earth.
And in fact, I think the big crystal cave that's in Mexico that they discovered just a few years back, there's these enormous crystals in there. They can only be in the cave for 10 minutes at a time because they radiate such great heat. It's like 140 degrees inside the cave.
I would imagine you stay there too long, you might explode, right?
Yes, that's exactly the case. They can't even stay next to them for a very long time. Wow. So it's fascinating.
That is fascinating. Oh, I love that. Yeah, my listeners will love that fact. So we're going to start a little bit today about telling the story of your life story up to this point and how you've arrived in a space that you are in this moment.
So life story obviously can be very involved and take a long time to go through. So I'll kind of do the cliff notes, I suppose.
Perfect.
I consider myself someone who has experienced maybe 3 or 4 lifetimes of stuff in this particular one. I was born to a very impoverished environment. My background is quite colorful, and I say that I actually don't share a lot of my personal background with many because they kind of take on pain when they hear about it. That doesn't exist for me because I've done all of my work. So I would just say, my background is one of coming up in a very low income neighborhood in the south side of Chicago. Drugs, guns, violence. Many people I know have been murdered. Many people I know have committed suicide, including my mother. There's just all kinds of traumatic events that go along in that environment. I would say my high school was probably the first high school in the country to get metal detectors, right? So growing up in the south side of Chicago inner city, it is very much exactly everything you've heard on the news and seen, in movies, portrayed in movies and things like that.
Wow.
But at the same time, I was also raised in an environment that was highly European and Hispanic, and really instilled a great sense of honorable values that I feel, that's the benefit of that space. And I also look at my background as being one that really had to occur the way that it did in order for me to be an effective mentor at this time, because there is very, very little that anyone can share with me in their own healing journey that would, cause me to cringe in any way. So I often tell all those I work with, without going into my own details, I don't go into that discussion, but I say there truly is nothing that you could tell me that would startle me in any way, whether that is violence, drug addictions, sexual abuse, all of the things, I've experienced all of the things in my life. And so I did not understand how to process that for a very long time. And what got me here today as an Ayurvedic practitioner, as a Vedic counselor, as a mentor, so to speak, is just the sheer experience of life and being in the most darkest spaces that one could imagine, and really learning how to walk out of those spaces by doing work, by instilling medicine, by instilling self-care and healing in small stages, but mostly the desire to not allow my karma of this lifetime to dictate what is in front of me. So I would say on this journey, in my early 30s is when I started to really take my health and healing very, very seriously. And so that was generally around the year 2005, 2004, and completely changed things. Discovered actually yoga in 1997 while living in Denver, but that was long before there was a yoga studio on every corner. And so I was introduced to it in the very traditional sense, within a metaphysical center, in fact. And so just kind of dipped my toe in there, not really knowing what was happening. And it kind of scared me a little bit because it made you sit down and look at yourself. And so I wasn't really ready, I think, for that yet. So I kind of stepped away from it, and I moved back home to Chicago in 2001, just days after 9/11, in fact, and dipped my toe back in, found a yoga instructor that I really adored, and decided back in 2003 that I wanted to be a yoga teacher someday. If I am to bounce around in the topics of this journey, I would say that, I crawled out of that ghetto and really pushed myself extremely hard to end up getting the equivalent of a master's degree in finance, and ended up working for the Securities Exchange Commission as a financial industry advisor. So that was my career, actually. And so I was a financial advisor, high stress job, dealing with the emotional baggage of my life in a bad relationship. Very, very sick, in fact, getting very, very ill. And it wasn't until 2004, recovering from cancer, that I decided I needed a major shift in life. And so that's about 2005, 2006 is when I got very, very serious about my health journey. And within the course of 2 years, went through a massive amount of counseling, therapy, psychotherapy. I lost 100 pounds. And on that journey of health, that just was making everything better, of course. In 2010 is when I discovered Ayurveda as the sister health care practice of yoga. And I sat in on my very first workshop, and I knew in that 2-hour segment that this was the coordination of everything I had ever thought, everything I had ever felt, everything I had ever known but was unable to articulate since I was a child, when it comes to health and healing of not just the physical space, but mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, what it means to use natural medicine. Everything that I had been attracted to since I was a child actually had a name, and it came from the other side of the planet. And so, so this big, huge chunk of healing was taking place, and it was so profound for me that it helped me so drastically with my life that I knew that this was it. This is what I needed to do. So in 2015, more than 12 years after I decided I wanted to become a yoga instructor, I finally got certified. Also in 2012, I started Ayurveda school, and I've been a student of Ayurveda ever since. So, going on 11 to 12 years of study now, and here we are. The discovery of Sankhya philosophy and the Vedic teachings on psychology shifted my life so drastically. It's the very reason why my practice is called Sattvic Sage, because sattva is one of the states of consciousness taught within Sankhya philosophy in the Vedic teachings. So here we are.
Here we are. What a beautiful coming to this realization for you. I mean, we all have to go through the struggle sometimes to find the light, but my goodness, I know for myself, even when I just first heard the word Ayurveda way back in early the 2000s, something really resonated with me. I wasn't sure why, but the more I've learned about it, the more I practice it, I find that when something just makes sense to me, I don't have to think too hard about it. That's kind of where I veer my path. It's not that the information is easily understood by any means, because there's a lot of layers and depths to it that I'm still, probably will always be uncovering. But just the feeling of the yoga practice, the feeling of working with my clients in an Ayurvedic way is just resonates. as I'm sure what you've
I
just
think
explained.
that I think that many people feel that way. It's been my experience that whenever I offer, workshop of introduction, the response is always, that makes complete sense to me. And I say it must, because it is right along with the laws of physics and the laws of nature. So once we all hear it and we really sit down and obviously have a good explanation, so to speak, even at surface level, you might just be trying to get maybe some Sanskrit words in there, just trying to take a bite of it. But holy cow, is that huge.
Yeah.
But to make your point, to come back to your point of how you say like the layers of information just keep coming, that is where it's important for anyone listening to know that, classical Ayurveda teaching and classical knowledge and this medical system, this psychological system is very in depth. And it's, it takes studying it for minimum of 10 years to even really fully grasp what it's doing and how to use it, in fact, how to really implement it with others. And so I'm someone who will always say, when you're working with a practitioner, no matter who they are, not me, but even just anyone, it's really to be cognizant of their background and their true, education in the practice, because unfortunately it's unregulated. And so it's just kind of thrown around out there right now. So it's just to pay attention. But I agree with you fully. It's really it takes a lifetime to really embrace.
And for myself, I know I didn't realize this till later in life, but I'm a bit on the dyslexic side. So reading and looking at these beautiful Sanskrit terms at the very beginning of my training, my practice, it was very intimidating for me. And I still, to this day, I still have a book by Simon Chwatsky, I think his name is, Sanskrit Without Stress. And it's really difficult for me to sound these words out. And I know that is intimidating for people just to see the word Ayurveda, to trust that. So what would be something that you could that you would tell someone coming up who is in training now, who might be interested in taking training for Ayurveda, how to allow it to come to you as opposed to resist that urge to struggle and to learn it and to memorize it?
My personal experience has been that you just keep going, you keep studying it. I remember when I opened my first Ayurvedic book for year one study, and I looked at the table of contents and I thought, there is no way I am ever going to understand all of this or what these Sanskrit words are or anything else. And so here I am. I open the book now and I can tell you absolutely everything, and so that's just self-doubt. I think that it's intimidating because it's different. And even the Sanskrit words, pronouncing them does just take practice. But the reason for that is that we don't use certain palate in our palate a certain way when we speak English. There are just sounds that we're not accustomed to making with our tongue against a certain space in the throat and things like that. But at the same time, that being said, you're not going to speak Sanskrit to your clients.
Right.
The same way that no doctor speaks Latin to you, right? So it's to keep that in mind. It is important, though, for credibility to keep the classical teaching understood. And if you're going to speak to other Ayurvedic physicians, that you are going to use that terminology, right? So you should know it. But in everyday consultation, you won't really need to be pronouncing those Sanskrit words with your clients because they're not going to remember those words, right?
True. And I guess that's the same with my massage therapy. You're not going to walk around talking about the quadratus laborum or the,
Exactly. Yes.
although those are beautiful words and I can pronounce
Right.
those,
You're not,
but you
those
do have to.
Latin.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So going back, just touching on a little bit of the credentialing and the licensure aspect of this, because I know for myself, I graduated massage school in 2008. And at that time, still, probably half of the states in the country, anyone could do massage without an actual license.
Right.
I was in the state of Washington. I had moved and started practicing in the state of Pennsylvania. And at the time, in 2010, Pennsylvania, you didn't have to have a license either. So I was actually on the board of the AMTA in Pennsylvania, and we got licensure enabled.
Fantastic.
And yeah, and it's just an amazing conversation when you have with people that, oh, I didn't know you had to be licensed. And, you know, so can you talk a little bit about where we're at in the Ayurvedic forum as to how close we might be to licensure and what we can do as wellness counselors and practitioners to support that?
So, right now, there is no credentialing authority for Ayurvedic education in the United States. We're working on that. The National Ayurvedic Medical Association, which we refer to as NAMA, does have standards in place for practitioners. They have set a lot of guidelines. That being said, the United States government does not recognize Ayurveda as a clinical healthcare at this time. But it's no different than the beginnings of massage therapy, and at one time acupuncture and Chinese medicine and chiropractic and all these things that are now licensed and regulated practices that exist. You know, at one time, as you mentioned, they were not recognized. So that's where we are with Ayurveda currently, and we are working diligently to change that by first incorporating associations of Ayurveda practitioners at the state and the national level. So many states, I would say, you know, maybe 20 states in the United States right now are 501c3 organizations of Ayurveda professionals. I happen to be the president of the association in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are numerous other ones, as I mentioned. And the national level organizations are NAMA, which I mentioned, and also what's called NCAM, which is National Consortium of Ayurveda Medicine, of which I'm also on the board of directors for this organization, which is two national level organizations coming together to really educate the public, first and foremost, on what actual Ayurveda care looks like, because unfortunately, because as I mentioned, it's unlicensed. So there's a lot of adulteration going on out there. There's a lot of yoga teachers teaching Ayurveda without a proper education behind them. There's a lot of that happening. So we are in the process, all of these organizations are working towards getting the U.S. Department of Education, first and foremost, to recognize a standardization of education. So there are numerous Ayurveda colleges, even in the United States. Some of them, you know, everybody has a different curriculum. So that's where we are now. And so we are attempting to get all of the colleges to have the same curriculum, because it's kind of like a massage therapist. You go to massage school and then you have to pass an exam, right? And then you have to pass an exam with the state. But the state only knows what to exam on because the standards have been, you know, developed. So that's where we are right now. We're working on the standardization of education, and then the next step would be petitioning the U.S. Department of Education for an accreditation authority. And the accreditation authority would be called NCCBAM, in fact. It is a group of physicians from India who are setting the standards for proper education, right? So this practice, we don't want it to be watered down for the American ear. That's also the risk. And that's the challenge that we're facing right now, is that it is authentic education and that it's not watered down for the American ear. We didn't do that with Chinese medicine. We don't do that with anatomy for massage therapy. You must really know what you're doing to do acupuncture. So we don't want the loss of the info, right? So that's the first step. Then we go to then we kind of go to our state and say, we exist as organizations, as practitioners, and we want to be recognized. So at the same time, we have to remember the medical care system in the United States is not very forgiving or welcoming of holistic medicine. It's taken a long time for chiropractors and naturopaths and all of that to be recognized. So it isn't an easy task, but I think that it's really gaining momentum now.
Well, if someone out there was considering going the Ayurvedic route, whether that be for interest or a condition that unfortunately Western medicine has not been able to help long-term with, what would someone need to ask the person that they're going to, or what would they need to be aware of to work with someone who is legitimately been enrolled in a course with those specific guidelines?
Understood. So that's a great question. The practitioner that you seek or choose should either have the title of BAMS, which means Bachelor of Ayurveda Surgery, Medicine Surgery, which is a physician that comes from India. So they have a full medical education, but they must have the title BAMS. Or it should be someone who has attended a school, a college that is approved by the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. What happens is there are numerous programs out there, and in fact, many people send me links to them. Look at this and look at this, because they know I'm kind of an advocate. And so anyone who knows me in social media knows that I'm like, this is not right. Yeah. So for example, there is, and I'm just going to call it out, there's a program called My Vinyasa Practice that's out there online, and they offer a 200-hour yoga teacher training with Ayurveda included. So you're getting, 30 hours of Ayurvedic study, and then they're giving out the title of Ayurveda specialist, right? Which is really hard to swallow, because there's nothing we can do about that. So you can have someone who takes a yoga teacher training and then goes out there and actually they believe, because they don't know any better, that they cannot practice ethically as an Ayurvedic practitioner. Or there's a myriad of online programs, $299 for this 500-hour program, and you're an Ayurveda physician, or start your career teaching Ayurveda, where this is like, so there's plenty of people doing this, right? So to answer your question, the practitioner should have gone to a college, like ask where they went to school. How many hours have you studied and where did you go to school? That school should be approved by the National Ayurveda Medical Association. If it's not, that means that their education does not meet the minimum requirement to be a practitioner. So generally, you have Ayurveda counselor, and that's about 800 hours of study. And that's kind of like basically food, digestion, lifestyle practices. And then you have Ayurveda Practitioner, which tends to be an additional 1,000 to 1,500 hours, where you're still using herbal medicine and food to treat more clinically diagnosed illnesses. But again, as a practitioner in an unlicensed medical field, right, you cannot ever conflict with a medical authority. So I tell all of my clients, right, I will never tell you not to take medicine prescribed by your doctor. So don't think that Ayurveda, like coming to Ayurveda, means that you have to give up your medical. No, this is not, we're very complementary, all of that. So long answer to the question. I go on tangents, sorry. I would say really understanding that, proper Ayurveda education is not cheap. It's medicals. You have to go to anatomy and physiology and study then Ayurvedic anatomy, Ayurvedic physiology, which is a whole different, viewpoint. And it costs thousands of dollars. Like this tuition, can be level 1, can be $8,000. I mean, anything that's too cheap and sounds too good to be true usually is. So what these online schools do is, and they might even be from India. You know how much $200 is in India, right? So they're selling certificates, basically. So someone who goes to an online school who's never touched another human being or taken their pulse or looked at their skin or anything, it's just not the proper way.
No, it's not. And it brings back a lot of frustration that I had when I first started practicing my massage, in that it not only legitimizes the profession, but it casts a I don't know what the right word is, a capability level and a trust level with your clients that you've done the work. I have seen the Ayurvedic certification, $99, and I crawl out of my skin like I did 10 years ago with the whole massage thing. My partner and I, we used to be quite diligent when we would go get work done, body work done. And it was very evident a couple of the times that they had not had near, the amount of hours, what my hours were, over 1,000 hours, I think, for massage therapy training. And so it's obvious. So it's just a word of caution for anyone listening that it's like choosing a Western GP. You ask your friends and family what their recommendations are. You do your homework when you're about to work with someone in a complementary healthcare field.
Right. And, my suggestion is too, you can go on to the website for the National Ayurvedic Medical Association, and there's a directory of all of those registered, in the state. And you, of course, have to meet educational standards, and actually to be a professional member of NAMA the way I am, you have to take an exam to prove your competency. So there's that also. So that's the easiest way to find someone, would be that directory. Also, there's other areas that you could seek help from. So the American Association of Ayurveda Professionals is out there, AAAP, all these acronyms, the National Consortium of Ayurvedic Medicine, as I mentioned, NCAM. There's a lot of good resources to find out where to go to seek a proper practitioner. Because the risk here this is the risk that we're so concerned about. with just anyone, going out there and teaching Ayurveda, because it's the trendy thing to do right now. And all our yogis, are like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm an Ayurveda person now, it's trendy and it's exotic. And so it's spreading actually like wildfire. And this is why it's so great that we're having this conversation. So it's not to be boring or technical or anything like that, but it's just to know that this is a deeply and profoundly healing practice. I have many case studies of people who've reversed hypothyroidism, who have reversed infertility, I have case study after case study and testimonial after testimonial. So this is very, very serious. The risk here is that people who don't know what they're doing go out to practice and give advice. Then it doesn't work for someone, or it makes them sick, and things are not working well. And then the consensus will be, well, Ayurveda doesn't work. But it's because you didn't work with someone who was doing the right things, right?
Right.
So that's very, very important.
Very important. And so I want to kind of segue into what is coming into fruition for you and your experience out there in Arizona. I was just able to watch your replay of your discussion on the Sattvic Sage Sanctuary. So, as concise as you can. I know there's so much to talk about with it, and it's so exciting. This is obviously a dream coming to fruition for you, but for so many people. I was just overwhelmed with the generosity that is coming from the depths of this whole new experience that we're going to be able to go to in the United States. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Concisely as possible, I would say that my dream of having some type of healing center goes back to 1996. I was drafting the plans for what type of little healing center I could have at that time. And so this is a very, very deep-seated desire from probably my lifetime. And so what I'm working on now is called Sattvic Sage Sanctuary. In February of last year, I purchased 10 acres of land in Tonopah, Arizona, which is just to the west of downtown Phoenix. And I want to build this center where, you can come in. I've been to India and in my own Panchakarma therapies. And there's a big difference to be able to go somewhere to stay for a period of time, to really receive healing from all directions through spiritual practices in the morning, from burning fires to chanting, to eating food grown right on the land where you're staying, to the physician or the practitioner living on the same land, to the adaptation of environmental consciousness, all of these things. And so this is what my goal is, to offer this space where a yoga retreat can happen, an Ayurveda retreat can happen, where our seasonal cleanse can take place. For a couple of weeks, every April and October, we do the cleanse. And so I've been asked for many years by a lot of my clients, like, when can we just come and stay at your house? Because my practice right now is out of my home, right? So it's out of my home in Arizona, and it's out of my Sutter World Wellness Center in Illinois. But more than half of my house is for my practice. I live in a little space like this, and then I made everything else like outside, the pool, the yoga studio, the consultation room. So, but I've maximized what I can do here, and I don't have the accommodation space. So what I'm trying to create is the fairy tale land, or the Disneyland of Ayurveda, so to speak, where all of the healing modalities, there will be a labyrinth on the desert land. There will be a huge fire pit with surround seating. There will be a sweat lodge. There will be, all the 4 directions, will be admired, right? So my grandmother was born on Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota as Aglala Blackfoot Sioux, right? So bringing those components of my bloodlines into this healing space, all of it though. And then traditional Ayurveda therapy, proper food, everything, not just for retreat, for someone, someone can come for retreat, but they can come for cleanse, they can come for the day and have consultation just like they do now. But it's really my really true goal with all of this is to create a sanctuary, just as I said. Like, the world is loud and noisy and argumentative, and it's just getting stronger and stronger. All of this technology, all of this information, AI is coming, robots are coming, like, we don't have to fear any of that, because it's no different than 1985 when I watched Get Short, and they were talking into the watches that I have on my
right
hand right now,
uh-huh.
And so we were all freaked out about what that futuristic space looked like. And here we're living in it. And so we see with the smartphones and all this, it's not really anything to be afraid of, and life in general is not very different than it's been since the dawn of man. There's always been war. There's always been famines. There's always been pandemics. There's always been migration. There's always been all of the, climate change. All of this has always occurred since the last 100,000 years. But our ability to know about it now is what has changed. So the noise is so loud and it's overwhelming everyone so much that we forgot who we are. And so if I were to say, what is my soul mission with this sanctuary? It's for someone to walk in the door and remember who they are. Remember your true nature as a human species on a planet that circles a star in the middle of infinity. Just take a moment to drink water, to swim in the pool, to burn a fire, to stare at the stars, and just turn the phone off and really allow a deep sense of release of all that noise and anxiety and resentment for the times, So that's what's underway. And I actually just have put all those plans together. As you said, you watched the presentation. That is on my website also. There's a link for it called Sattvic Sage Sanctuary. It's just one of the tabs. And I am seeking support. It's a very expensive project to build on raw land. I have to build, dig water and, everything.
Yeah.
And so it's a $940,000 project, of which I have $550,000. But for the remainder, I am seeking support for that. So happy to talk about that when it's time.
Yeah, that's perfect. We'll have the information of where people can find you in the description of the show for sure. And when I promote the episode, we'll plug that in a little bit as well.
Awesome.
I think that there are so many different levels of care that you're going to be able to provide there that the reach is just going to be way larger, and the impact is going to be way more intense, I think, than what you can even imagine at this moment. So I'm just so excited to know you, that you're moving forward with this beautiful dream of yours.
Really, when I speak about it, it is the whole aim of why I'm doing any of this. I think that deep down inside, we all know what darkness looks like, the dark day of the soul, right? For whatever reason, whether it's our own doing or it's something that's inflicted on us in this lifetime, I think that we can feel that. And my whole journey in this space has never been, I was a financial advisor with a 6-figure income and consciously walked away from that. My husband thought I was insane to just walk away from a 25-year career to say, you know, I'm not driven by dollars. You know, I'm driven by how powerful this is in helping people to step out of that dark night of the soul. That is the best way that I could try to describe, like, why am I doing this? Why? Because I know what it feels like to want to end your life, you know, and there's no one to help you or to hold your hand or to really explain to you how you can walk out of that space. And this practice, this knowledge, these teachings is what did that for me. And I want to just tell anyone who will listen to me about it.
Well, I'll listen to you all day long, but I also think that there's a lot of listeners who will be introduced to you for the first time that will, a lot of this will resonate. It's more than, you know, it's not even really about, I don't want to say the word competition because it's not really the word that I want, but it's not about competing with Western medicine or traditional Chinese medicine or any of the modalities that are currently in place. It's a complement to, but it also goes deeper than what surface level current medicine is able to offer people. I think that people are really pigeonholed a lot because of an insurance setup and the timing that doctors have to actually be with their patients.
Right.
I think, you know, even just in my practice, I have always asked people about their life and about, even if they're just coming for a relaxation massage. And it's interesting how people are so conditioned to not be asked how their life is, how they're feeling about their life, what stresses could be happening in their life, that they're coming to me to get relief from, that they're not asked in a regular conversation with a PA or a doctor, just because they don't have any time to do it. Right. And I think it's very new for the world, for people who aren't practicing these things, to go into that situation. And I want to be able to tell people that they have choices, right? That they have options far beyond what they've been conditioned to do. My parents, prime example of what the doctor says is truth, what the doctor says is gospel, and this is what we do, and we don't question it. This is the course of action. And for whatever it's worth, sometimes it's just not enough. You know, we crave more than being handed a script. We crave more because our soul knows what is supposed to feel good and how we're to be on this planet. So
you know, I would say that the conversations that I have with clients, the first thing I really want, you know, tell them is that you may have come here for the Ayurveda diet, right? Quote unquote, the Ayurveda diet. People hear about that, the food is medicine. So food is always a very big component of the practice. And that is very, very true, because Ayurveda uses food as medicine. We're in a space where the fitness industry is shouting things at us, keto and Whole30 and you know, oh my gosh, count your protein macros. Do you have enough protein? And go to the gym and run on the treadmill. And, you know, so when people want to be healthy, then they start taking a bunch of supplements and, you know, they're trying to meal prep, and it all becomes this big stressed out thing where it's all about calories and nutrients and, you know, and so that's not this, number one. It's like, we're just going to keep it simple because we're going to look at the actual function of food, how it functions. What does it do? What is its karma on the body? And this is through the laws of physics. So you can check this out as much as you want and cross-reference it all you want. It's never wrong. You know? But it's a level of food science that doesn't exist anywhere else. So that's wonderful. That's the first thing. But see, I use myself and my own mind as an example all the time. I was 100 pounds overweight. I knew how to lose weight. It wasn't a question of what I should do. Go to the gym, get on a treadmill, don't eat at 10 o'clock at night, don't eat garbage, don't eat, you know, everybody knows what to do. So if I just give you the list, here's the food list, you know, for you based on your Prakriti and Vikriti. If you feel like crap, if you feel like shit, you're going to take that, throw it in the fire, and it's going to be on to the keto diet. So that's not what happens here. What happens here is what is preventing, where's the missing link that prevents you from taking care of yourself? If you're pre-diabetic, right, and you can't seem to give up your addiction to sugar, then we have to maybe sit down and contemplate what diabetes looks like, right? So we can mentally go through, like, this is kind of what you need to contemplate as you eat sugar, because this would be the future, right? So it's very much psychological. See, illnesses don't come to us out of the clear blue sky. You know, they come based on what we are doing to ourselves. And this is even for marathon runners. Everyone's convinced that marathon running is this wonderfully healthy activity to do. And actually, it is the exact contradiction. Running and running and running and running and running tells your subconscious nervous system that you are in danger. So you're in a consistent state of fight or flight, and you are burning up the entire endocrine system with that level of adrenaline, right? And you're probably suffering from chronic anxiety and you don't know why, right? And then when you turn 55, you need knee replacements. So marathon running is an unnatural human activity. We are designed to run if our life is in danger, not for no reason. If we saw an animal running around in circles for no reason, we would put it down because it obviously has a mental problem. So we have to just, again, remember how we're designed and who we are, and that our illnesses are a direct result of our choices. And we have to figure out where the disconnect is in the mind, because that's where the healing begins. If you don't feel right in the mind and you're completely stressed out from your job and your life and your relationship and your kids and your family members or whatever is going on, and the only way you're waking up in the morning is drinking about half a pot of coffee and drinking a bottle of wine to go to sleep, you know, we have to talk about how to fix things in the middle of all of that. And it's not going to be a diet recommendation, right? So the beauty of this medical practice is that it is the physical body and the health of the physical body, but the health of the physical body can only unfold with the health of the mind. So the first conversation we're having is psychological, which is not going to happen at the doctor's office, ever, never.
No, it's not. And it's an interesting shift in my practice in the last year or so, that I have been going further into people's emotional state, the reasons why they have the diabetes, why they have this, why they feel a certain way every single day. And I don't know, this is absolutely zero disrespect to my Native American brothers and sisters, but I think at one point, at one life that I may have lived, I think I may have been dubbed she who makes people cry, because I can't have those conversations with people without having a complete, utter release from them. And it's a simple question, right? Of, what is it that you think may be contributing to this? And it just flows and flows and flows. And in my heart, I really want people to see that as a chance for growth, as a chance for change, as making a different choice. But I think a lot of people are really afraid of that,
Right.
which is why they don't go there.
Well, it's because that's what they've been taught. Right. So I have large boxes of tissue in my room because absolutely, I don't know if it's the minority of people who actually do not have that release in these conversations. So I would say that it's very common, yes, that we're kind of getting to the heart of the matter, right? So if we have an illness, it has stemmed from our choices, and our choices have stemmed from our trauma. And so we have to backtrack through all of that in a very peaceful, loving, and non-judgmental way. And that's why I say, I know I had to experience all the things I've experienced in my life for me to be an effective space holder for this, because you have to have that strength of space holding for those who are ready to have that release. And they always apologize. Every tear comes with an apology. And I say, see, that's what you were taught, that you should repress your emotion. And repressing your emotion is the first stage of disease. And so we as human beings, when we have emotion in the mind, whether it's anger or sadness, fear, whatever it is, the body immediately reacts to the mind, right? So when I say you want a good indicator of the mind, body, spirit connection, I'll give it to you. What happens to your body when you have a very sad thought go through your mind? And most people will say, oh, you get tired, you get depressed. And I say, no, water comes out of your eyes. And they sit there and think, oh my gosh, you're right. And I say, this is a immediate physical reaction to the mind to release the tension, to release the emotion, to process the emotion, right? Even when we shake, if we get really angry and we just start shaking and we break out in a sweat and we turn all red, that is the body's reaction to download that emotion. So when we repress emotion, then we end up a ball of nerves. And then we're a ball of nerves, and then we don't eat, and then we don't sleep, or maybe we're angry and we're resentful. And then that's going to determine how we make other choices in our life, because we might even self-sabotage to be a martyr. I'll show them. Oh, we have all kinds of psychological things that we have to contend with. So these are the topics we're having here to say, like, if you have this going on, we have to backtrack and see where this started, because that's the only way that in little teeny baby steps, we're going to walk out of this. And when people see that they can just make this one little thing change over here, that it snowballs into this beautiful healing effect, they're like, I can't believe this was so easy. I am astonished.
Yeah, once you've given the body the environment it needs to heal and to process, like that's what the body does, right? Our bodies are made to heal. They're self-healing. They want to be whole. They want to be healthy. So the further we get away from that state of being, the louder the noise and the voice in our head is, the pain, the louder the pain is.
And this is why I'm so convicted in saying that this form of medicine is more profound than anything I have witnessed on earth.
And I wholeheartedly can stand next to you and say that as well. I would like to, in preparing for our closing, if you could talk a little bit about how you, in your life, in your everyday practice, how do you cultivate joy and ease and love in your life daily?
I cultivate joy through gratitude, right? I cultivate joy by taking time to meditate on the big picture. realistically, it's easy for any of us to find a reason to be upset or something wrong with something, right? But it takes a little bit more work to cultivate sincere joy. And so I find personally that when I step back and remember that there are 8 billion people on this planet right now, in this moment, experiencing life in a different way, I could not be more blessed or more comfortable. I am so joyful with the fact that I have a washing machine and a dryer. You know, we can take a basket of laundry to the washing machine and be like, how come I always have to do the laundry? And what am I, the only one who works around here? And I've got to wash these clothes every day for these people, right? And so we can do that, or shifting perspective, we can say, I am doing this because I choose to take care of those I love and myself. And how fortunate am I that all I have to do is press this button. I don't have to go down to a river. I don't have to carry a basket on my back in the hot sun. I don't have to do this or that or hang dry all of these things. I have a washing machine. I press this button, it washes the clothes. I press this button, it dries the clothes. How fortunate am I to have these modern conveniences? It's never been a better time to be alive. You know, the world out there right now will have you convinced it's the end of times. Oh, the corrupt government people. Oh, the politics. Oh, the war. Oh, this and that. Again, nothing's changed since the dawn of man, right? We have never had it more comfortable than we do right now. We've never had access to more clean water coming out of the kitchen sink. Again, I switch a knob and I have clean hot water coming out of my sink, you know? We've never had access to more food. We've never had women who survive childbirth the way they do now. We've never had the longest life expectancies than we have right now. This is why we've gone from 1.5 billion people at the end of World War II. All of humanity and evolution of the planet, it took to get to 1.5 billion. And from 1947, 80 years later, we have quadrupled to 8 billion people. Why is that? Because we've never had it better. So when we really step back and meditate on these things, rather than being hyper-focused on all of these isolated incidents that we see in the media and all the reasons why we should be filled with anxiety and fear and, you know, all that, it's to remember that that's the human condition, number one. There's no escaping that. The utopian life that you dream about cannot exist, right? So once you can come to a state of acceptance of the human condition and just how fortunate you really are on this planet, how could you feel anything but joy? Of all the places, if anyone's who's listening to this in their car driving to work or sitting on the back porch or doing whatever, you're blessed right now with where you are. If this is reaching your voice, you're already blessed, or your ears, you're already blessed, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way that I cultivate my joy, in knowing that Sankhya philosophy has taught me that even that which we view as detrimental or painful in this experience of life is actually necessary, right? Human beings have only evolved from discomfort. If we were comfortable all the time, we could not evolve. Hence, we could not exist, right? So everything going on, you know, is, you know, it's not to say complacency about what's going on, because I'm a big proponent of supporting good causes. Like, don't get me wrong there, right?
Yeah.
So no, I'm not just saying like, accept the bad things, you know, no, that's not it. It's that we do actions to cultivate good deeds and kindness and all of that. And we put that into the world, right? But most of the time people will sit back and see it and complain about it and hate it and resent it, but not really provide solutions. So I feel joy in the fact that I know when I lay my head down at night that I have truly done my very best to contribute to the joy of myself and to the joy of others. It's not to say I don't have a moment. I mean, I'm a human being as well, right? But I get to now walk the path with a wise way of reaction versus the unwise way of reaction in the past. So I have no reason but to feel joyful, even on my worst day, even on the worst day in my upbringing or my childhood or whatever. I still had it better than 50% of the human beings on planet Earth. And I have to remember that.
Thank you for that. You, what you've just said, not in the exact words, but just a few days ago, I rewrote my bio, my story, right? And I had listened to it. I recorded it for the podcast and listened to it again for, well, the last time because I deleted it. But it was like my story, all of my experiences. I wanted to play the vulnerability card. I wanted to connect with people on a certain level, but as I reread it back, like it was so much leaning in the negative, so much of what I was complaining about in my life. And as I was writing it, I remember thinking, yeah, people need to know this about me. People should, I can connect better if I can be more relatable in that way. But as I reread it and heard it, I was like, this isn't how I want my story to be told. This isn't the story that I came here to live. And so I took every single one of those specific situations and I rewrote it with the gift that it had given me, with the gratitude of what I was able to achieve because of it. And it's amazing, just, I don't know, 15, 20 line items that I rewrote and rephrased and turned it on its end. Like I've literally been on cloud 9 because for this whole 50 some odd years of my life, I've been like, oh, my life was so this, my life was so this. But now I'm like, oh my God, my life has been so much this. And I was just with a client this morning and she was commenting on the gray hairs that are coming into her head and how she just can't stand to look at herself in the mirror. And I said, well, why? And she says, it reminds me of my mother-in-law. And I was like, oh, apparently that's not a very pleasant story. And she said, no. And she told a little bit about it. And I was like, well, why don't you just change your story about it then? Mm-hmm. She's like, she kind of looked up at me from below, and she's like, that's really beautiful. I just might have to do that. I was like, see, you already feel better. Like you have the power to change the story that you want to tell. Mm-hmm. And so that is a lot of what this podcast is meant to provide for people, to give them an opportunity to start seeing things from the opposite side of the spectrum, right, as opposed to where they feel that they have been told they have to be.
Yes, any one of us, I think, can very easily hold on to our trauma or that which makes us uncomfortable or which has hurt us in the past. That's very easy to do, right? It actually takes more work to witness the experiences and ask the question of, instead of why is this happening to me, ask the question of, what is this teaching me? But you have to also be willing to let go, because some of us can become, our identity can be attached to our past, right? I could very easily say, I'm this tough chick from the south side of Chicago, right? But actually, that's not me. That's not the label, right? So we can hold on to the persona, or we can hold on to the trauma, because many people don't know how to exist without their trauma, or many people actually say that they want to heal, but they don't really want to. They're very comfortable with their illness, and they actually enjoy talking about it a lot. And so that can happen. You have to have a very open mind. You have to have you have to be strong. You have to be open. You have to be vulnerable, right? You have to be humble also. Right. I'm like, I have this very strong voice, right? So I always tell everyone, like, please don't let that fool you, because I'm a big old pink teddy bear inside of here with this big old open heart that cries all the time. You know? But it might not sound like that on the outside, but you have to be open and to not think you know everything already. You know, this humility has to come to say, you know, I don't really know. And I need to be open to learning how to shift and change things, to find that joy, to release the stories of yesterday, and know that that's not what defines what's in front of me.
Right.
Right.
Is there anything else you would like the listeners to know about you or your practice before we move on to the final silly question of the day?
Oh, I guess to know about me is that I have consultation available in person or online. I have clients all over the country. I am home based in Phoenix, but I do spend 3 months in Chicago each year for yoga teacher training. That there's a lot of information on my website as well. I think that my website link would probably really explain all there is to know about me and what I offer.
Okay.
And that, you know, if they ever feel called to support the causes of holistic healing and what we've spoken about here today, I would absolutely welcome any thoughts, ideas, comments, time, money, donations, monetary, whatever it is for the sanctuary. And that would be accepted with the deepest gratitude.
Excellent. So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so being that you're from Chicago, I want to know, is the hot dog a sandwich? Yes or no? And why or why not?
Oh, I don't think we've ever called it a sandwich. Nope. No. We would call that a red hot. And don't ever put ketchup on it. Never. Against the rules. You can have pickles on it. You can have mustard on it, onions. You can have all kinds of things, but never ketchup.
Thank you for
The
playing
best
along.
place to get it is Maxwell Street. But no, it's not it's not a sandwich. It's a dog.
It's a dog. Oh, well. Well, thank you for answering that for me. It really wasn't something that's been on my mind lately, but it was just kind of a question I came across, and I figured you being from there, it would be an appropriate question. So
Excellent.
And with that, I'm going to just say thank you so very much for spending some time with me today and the listeners. In the description of the show, you'll find all the ways that you can reach out to Karla. And on that note, I will say thank you. And
thank you so much for inviting me. I really, really appreciate it.
Such a blessing to speak with you.
And that wraps up another episode of We Are the Medicine podcast. Wanted to take a moment to thank you and to let you know that I am grateful and I appreciate you so much. I see you. I hear you. I do understand. If you feel called, subscribe to my channel, like, share, comment with it, and check out my website for future happenings. DaniaAnastasia.com. That's all for now. I love you so much. It's crazy.